Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Dr. Glenn Bowe, and I am super excited to have this guest on the Nifty Thrifty Dentists Podcast. Before we get into this next episode, I'd like to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, MVP Mailhouse. Now, mailers have been around for a long time, but not any company can do direct mail for dental practices the way MVP Mailhouse does it. Check them out. Make sure you ask for a Nifty Thrifty deal. I've been using them for years, and you won't be disappointed. But before I introduce this awesome individual, let me ask you a couple of questions. What if there was a consultant out there that can help grow your practice by helping you close big cases? What if I told you specifically this consultant focuses on full arch cases? And what if I told you that luckily for you, that consultant is here on the Nifty Thrifty Dentists Podcast today? Welcome, the founder of the GnA Consult, Greg Essenmacher. Greg, what's up?
Hey man, what's going on? I mean, it sounded like an infomercial, but wait, there's more. I was just waiting for it, like either the George Foreman grill or the set it and forget it gal. Everybody knows who she is too. I was waiting for it, man. I was waiting for it. If by now, if you act in the next 30 minutes, we'll throw in a second one at no additional fee, just pay shipping and handling.
Well, I'll tell you what, as great as the Foreman grill was when I was in my college years, that kept me fed. What you do for dental practices, especially for the practices that have invested thousands of dollars to learn the skills necessary to do full arch cases. And we haven't even talked about the thousands of dollars they spend to market and to get those patients in. Now, think about that. You spend all that money training. You spend all that money getting patients to the door. And then like at the 1 yard line, you fumble the ball because you don't have the systems, or maybe you don't have the confidence to really convey to the patient that you are the right doctor for them. And so I am so excited to have you on because I hear these stories all the time. And honestly, they need to meet you. But before we talk about what you can do, because again, I can't wait to dive into that. For those who don't know who you are, I am lucky enough to know you, Greg. But for those who don't know, they're probably thinking, okay, all right, this guy might have like the secret sauce. He might have the strategy, but why? Why should I listen to this guy? I mean, other than the fact that he has bad taste in baseball teams, right? I'm a Texas Rangers fan. We had a good series with you guys in Arizona. But anyways, jokes aside, share your backstory and how you got roped into working with crazy people, aka dentists.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I've been in the dental industry for 18 years. And, I backed my way into dental. It was rental car. I got sober over 20 years ago and had to get a real career, right? Because I couldn't bounce around as a bartender, even though I had degrees on the wall and had bounced around in careers, working on Capitol Hill and then becoming a golf pro and, just bouncing, right? Bouncing around, always going back to bartending because it was quick, easy money. And, when you're not actually in a career, that's what I did, just existing. And 20 some years ago, got into rental car, had my first opportunity and excelled in that in corporate training and really loved what I was doing. The company that I worked for was a regional company. We helped build and grow that. It got bought eventually by Hertz rental car company. So if you see a logo underneath Hertz that starts with an A, Advantage, that it was a mom and pop company that was regional and really exploded and then got bought. And this is a theme, by the way, for all the companies that I tend to work for. Got into dental really by accident. I was looking at medical device companies, saw an ad on monster.com. Yes, I'm dating myself some, 18 years ago, for those who remember that company. It got into dental that way and was with the company, a small company that had really just biologics, and it was a beta TCP for those who are clinically savvy enough to know that allografts and xenografts dominate like 95%, that you're not using autogenous bone, and I was the only rep west of the Mississippi. Knew that the biggest implant company at that time didn't have a biologic and thought, I'm going to work smarter, not harder, and partnered with them and said, let's make sure that nobody gets in with their biologics and tries to then sneak their implants in. And so partnered with them, helped build and grow and explode that company over the course of a period of time. And once that company then was bought in 2013, was looking for my next opportunity, and Straumanngroup was looking to launch a value implant line, made an investment in Neodent, and that started my story in full arch. Neodent really was a full arch implant line for many reasons. I won't get into the technical side of it. And so that began my journey in full arch. And we really focused on the general dentistry practices, or at least the practices doing everything under one roof. And so that's really where it began. And I really always had this mindset of, rather than just, oh, want to buy my implant, want to buy my product, of really that 360 view of, if I can help build and grow your practice, what's your pain point? What are you struggling with? And for years, anyone who comes from the manufacturing side, this will resonate with. We're at these conferences, and clinicians like yourself, Glenn, you go to these conferences, you have the CE events, you'll go into your CE rooms, and what do the manufacturing reps do? What do the vendors do? You have choices, right? You can either learn from each other, hear what each other do, and that's what I chose to do, or you can go and take a break somewhere. Well, I chose to learn from my fellow men and women, and what do you do? And then bring those solutions and make introductions. And that really was the beginning of helping other practices, helping practices to figure out, well, I have a solution. I got a guy, it comes from Goodfellas, one of my favorite movies. I got a guy, let me make an introduction. And so then when I launched the implant, my own consulting business 3.5 years ago, after helping practices, general dentistry practices that also do full arch, build their full arch, this is really where it was foundational when I launched my consulting business. It was, wait, I know a lot of people. Let me see how I can help build their businesses. And in turn, that's how my business and really growing GnA Consult, which has been pretty amazing. And I bring people into my business that are really good at what they do because I've not been a treatment coordinator. So I've brought in people who have sat in that chair and built up practices as treatment coordinators, and director of operations who has scaled practices groups and is phenomenal in her side of business and what she does for me. And that's really what it is. Let people specialize in what they specialize in, especially in full arch. Your person doing the lead calls and converting those into consultations should specialize in that. You as the clinicians, and you mentioned it earlier on, they've really spent, if you think about it, tens of thousands of dollars, not just on the courses and the time away from family, right? That opportunity cost with family, but also they're away from their practices. Y'all are away from your practices. How much production would you do in a day if you're doing full arch, right? If you get the education in full arch, you're profitable. You do well. It's not the ones that are sitting, doing drill and fill and Medicaid practices that are learning full arch. For the most part, at least the ones that I've met along the way, and there's hundreds, thousands of them that I know. This is really the truth of the fact of how much do you invest financially, right? 3 things limited: time, talent, and treasure. Those 3 things, there's significant investment if you're doing full arch. And that's really where, set aside the cost and the expenditure of what your marketing spend every month and all of that to really maximize that. And that's where we really focus on how do you get the most out of what you're investing in.
Well, so first of all, thank you so much for sharing kind of the whole journey, your whole journey getting into dentistry, because I think it's extremely important, right? Because you've been on both sides, right? You've been on the side where, hey, I am trying to sell this implant line to these doctors, but in the process of you trying to make that connection, you're learning the pain points from these doctors, and now you've been on the other side just helping these doctors. So I want to point out the fact that you're a very unique position where you've been on both sides, where maybe other consultants maybe worked in the practice and they're going in through one particular lens. You're looking at it through multiple lenses there. Now, I have to ask you this. For all the people that you have been consulting, there's probably maybe a trend that you see. What would you say maybe 1 or 2 biggest issues or roadblocks that doctors have once they get all the training, right? You said it too. You put all thousands of dollars just to get the training. Then you don't think about the thousands of dollars that you are losing because you're not in the practice. And then, of course, we talk about personal family time, which is priceless, right? What have been the biggest issues or obstacles that doctors wanting to launch a full arch specific practice, what's hanging them up? What's the problem? What's the problem you always see?
Yeah, it's really identification of the problem because the problem changes, right? The market changes, the patient populations change. It's if whatever was working, if you had something working for a period of time, it's not understanding why it's working or why it's not working anymore. And one specific example, well, the leads used to be better. We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
I just need better leads. Do you need better leads, or is it that the team member that's converting the leads, or is it that the marketing company that you're with hasn't really like shifted the way that they're approaching the leads in the marketplace? Or is it that three competitors have come into your backyard within a 15-mile radius and they're just a little bit better at doing conversion of leads? Or is it that your team is still relying on the fact of patient comes in, the first thing we're going to do is see if they qualify for third-party financing? Or is it so? I mean, just in those, it's what is the diagnosis of the problem? Just as you do with patients across the board, when they first come in, it's we need to get to the bottom of the issue. What's really going on with this particular patient? Oh, I've got some soreness on the lower left-hand side. Well, is it really tooth number 19? Or is it an adjacent tooth? Is it really the tooth itself, or is it some soreness? You get the point. I'm not very clinical, so I know all the doctors are probably laughing and be like, "Okay, stop trying to talk clinical."
We get what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and so it's really what is the main issue of what's going on, and what that all boils down to, and what's so critically important is the metrics, and it is measuring the right things. Because I love all the marketing companies in the world. God bless you all, because what you do is very difficult. Mm-hmm. But marketing companies are going to feed metrics that marketing companies need and want you to hear. A good example, impressions. I'm not impressed by impressions. If you count somebody looking for a Hello Kitty doll as an impression and feed that to your client, that doesn't help me when I'm trying to find a full arch patient. Another good point too, from a marketing company's point of view, if it's just the number of leads that are coming in as a full arch doctor, and most will not do this, but there are a select number of them that I just want more leads. Do you just want more leads, or is it really the quality of leads that are most important? Because following that through all to which of those leads from what source is most important, and tracking that back to the lead itself. I would rather have clients that have 30 leads coming in and 10 of those leads actually convert into starts on arches than have 150 leads coming in and 10 of them start. Yeah. And I know it sounds so simple, Glenn, right? And you're like, well, of course, anybody would want that. But if you look at it just on that front end of number of leads, if somebody's paying $10,000 on ad spend and they're getting 30 leads, they're probably going to be pretty upset. If they're getting 150 leads, okay, that's better. That's more reasonable. But if you really look at how much revenue that they're generating, I mean, would you rather have the 10 starts or would you rather have 3? So, and it's really that tracking of by source and how frequently and what. So it's really the details behind the metrics themselves and how much are you following. So we have a lot of detail that we track with our clinicians, and oftentimes almost to a client. When we do our discovery, we ask them the question, great, so what are you tracking? And we'll ask them directly, and we get into a whole list of questions. And even though that are really savvy and doing 12, 15 arches a month, and we start to drill down into all their trackers, right? Because everybody's got trackers. And we start to ask very specific questions, and they'll struggle with just pulling data and delivering very simple numbers. Patient, by source, amount of revenue, what date, what time. I mean, some very specific things. And when they can't pull that data, and the great thing is I have somebody who's like my operations manager, right? And she pulls like specific data and asks specific questions. If that isn't readily at hand, you're not tracking the right things. And you're not looking at your profitability in full arch, which is peeled away from the general dentistry side of your practice. If it's all intermingled, you really don't know what your profitability is in full arch. It's just a part of, right? And the shiny keys of, oh, it's a $40,000, $50,000 case. This is great. We did like $250,000 in full arch. Okay, but what exactly did you do? How profitable was that 250? because we also have clients, and we just spoke with one a couple of weeks ago, and it was kind of sad. He said, look, we were doing 4 to 5 arches a month 2 years ago and profitable. Now we're doing 10 to 12 a month and we're not profitable, and I'm working twice as hard. And that like hurt my heart to hear, because that happens. And so that's really where we get down into those metrics of what are you really tracking and how profitable is it that what you're doing? Because you shouldn't work twice as hard and make, well, I don't even want to say half as much, because he wasn't making any money. He wasn't profitable. And that happens
So I
often
have
with
to
those growing full arch.
I have to actually for more details. Now we don't have to mention any names, but can you go into more details about this particular doctor situation?
Opened a second practice, and started doing more arches. Is the only doctor, because they brought in an associate. It didn't really work out that well with the other associate, and was working this, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., split
Wow.
time between two practices, trying to figure out, was talking to us about how can we get some systems and processes in place, and the conversation was, I just don't know. I'm trying to figure out how would I pay for your services because I'm not profitable. And I mean, just on the surface of it, the way that we were able to extrapolate out exactly what was going on, it was painful to hear. And to see somebody who's built up all of the profits from the general dentistry side of the practice and pushing it over into, a loss leader now on
Yeah.
the full arch side, and thinking spending more is going to bring more arches, which it did, but it didn't bring more profitability on the arch side of his practice, because there wasn't clarity on how profitable are those arches that you're building on that side of your practice. And it was really sad to see. And we're still in talks with them and sharing with them, look, this is what we've done for other practices just like yours. This is what it looks like to get some of your life back, to get your time back, right? To get some sanity back into what you're doing, because more arches doesn't necessarily mean more profitability. Typically it would, but not in the structure that he had and that he was running.
It's a classic case of that song, "Mo Money, Mo Problems," right? I mean,
Right.
it's like I'm dating myself there too, but it's like, there's this rap song, "Mo Money, Mo Problems," and sometimes you think like, hey, I'm just killing it here, and I want to just you feel like you have the Midas touch, and you want to just jump everywhere without having the right systems, and sometimes you get into a big mess, and you got to find a way out of it. So hopefully that doctor is gonna work with you, and hopefully he can find his way out of that mess there. But you brought up something that I thought was really intriguing, really intriguing. And again, that's what I love about having all these different guests, such as yourself, on this podcast. And you said that just because something was working in a particular period of time, things change. And then you think, like, what's going on, And what happened is the circumstances change. So I love that you brought that up, because a lot of times as dentists, we're like, hey, I had the secret sauce. It was working back in the early 2000s, and now it's not working anymore. And I just want you to kind of go in a deeper level there. Again, you talked about
Yeah.
like different competitors come in, but like go deep on that, because I think that's something that a lot of doctors, and I'm a doctor, so I can say it. Sometimes we just get lazy, right? We're like, we want to like set it and forget it. We just talking about it, right? We're talking about like the Ronco, a rotisserie chicken machine, right? Set it, forget it, because that's what doctors want to do. We want to set it, forget it, because we want to do the clinical. We don't want to think about that. But things change over time, and so go deeper on that. But also,
I will, and I'll give you a
when
specific example on
yeah,
that too, and continue on. I think it's really important. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm going
no.
to there, because I don't want to give me another thought and I'm going to lose it. So in this particular situation, here's a specific example, and I'll speak to it because this should, don't should all over yourself. It'll smell bad. I know it's PG, but I'll give that to you. The person converting your lead calls into consultations, giving them a static dollar amount, right? Say $20 for every lead call that they convert into a consultation. If that consultation shows up, you give them $20 for a bonus. On the surface, sounds great. They're doing their job. They have a consultation that shows up, of course, not just books, but shows up. $20. Great. A consultation that shows up, it doesn't matter if you're paying them a static dollar amount. Doesn't matter the quality of that patient that shows up, right? qualifying a patient on the phone, at least some type of pre-qualification of tell me a little bit more about your dental condition. Let me learn a little bit of something so I can hand up a little piece of information to my treatment coordinator, the doctor. Like, tell me what's going on. Let's make sure that they're actually coming in. They're not coming in thinking that they're going to get a grant or that their insurance is going to cover it for a $20, $30, $60,000 procedure. That's like basic, I would think, right? In the beginning, when you're first starting, typically, like, that's not the situation. It's pretty straightforward, right? You're converting cases, things are great, you don't have to worry about that. But as things go on, if you're still just paying that same amount, those leads that are coming in, if I'm a person who's getting paid $20 whenever a consultation shows up, what's the incentive to ensure that the consultations that show up are actually qualified consultations? None. However, a simple shift and adjustment of rather than paying for a consultation that shows up, paying them on a full arch start. So there's some vested interest and communication between those booking the consultation and those that are actually selling the treatment plan.
Yeah. They don't want to
Some
waste their
type of
time.
communication, some type of incentive, some type of let's make sure that we have this communication back to the marketing company of, you know what, I've been getting a lot of leads, fill in the blank, that aren't effective, right? So some ownership stake to the founder owner of the practice, to the treatment coordinator, and back to the marketing company, right? This would be critically important because a lead that comes in and books a consultation and shows up who, I don't know, maybe just got out of prison 3 months ago, has no job, and the entire credit score of a family of 7 is 212, is not exactly the same type of lead as somebody who's been to 3 other clinics, already knows what a full arch is going to cost in general, is pre-qualified through one of the 3 major third-party financing companies, has cash as well that might put some of it down, and is really just looking for the right vibe, the right culture, the right place where they can trust the doctor, and is ready to move forward today. Those 2 consultations that are going to show up, they aren't equal. But yet they're treated equally in compensation and bonus for the person who's doing the lead call. That just doesn't make sense on the face of it. To me, to us, to GnA Consult, to our clients. So needing to evolve and change and modify and elevate as you continue to grow in full arch is critically important. What that transition looks like and still honoring that person doing the lead call. I'm not saying give the same dollar amount, right, as $20 if they start. I'm not saying that either, right? Do it according to what percentage, right? We believe that everybody that's in that touch point of that patient journey as a percentage of as they contribute to. That way, everybody's aligned with the profitability of full arch, because that same doctor that I was talking about, same scenario, we're still talking about that same doctor is actually paying bonuses for these consultations showing up, and yet they're not profitable.
Yeah.
That is crazy days.
Yeah.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
I mean, that's a huge pearl right there. I mean, for those who are watching it right now, I mean, what Greg just shared, let's just say, I mean, obviously that's great for full arch, but I'm talking about any kind of big case, Invisalign, whatever it is. I love that. That's money. And again, if we just think about it from a logical standpoint, if we think about relationships, right? Like for those who are watching, maybe your relationship with your spouse, maybe your relationship with your parents, maybe your relationship with your kids, over time, it changes, right? Things change. And when we fall into the set it, forget it, the Ronco rotisserie chicken machine. When we fall in that, that's like the lazy way. And if you put in lazy work, you're gonna get lazy results. I love that. That is something. Something I was like, I had to remember about that. And thank you so much.
And we're talking everyone too, not just those in the touch point of the patient journey in full arch, right? Lead call, treatment coordinator, and those individuals. It's the whole team as well. Because here's what we believe as well. if you think about it, right? If there's we call it a micro team, right? That's focused on full arch. If they're doing 2 or 3 arches a month and it scales up to 5 to 7 arches a month, you don't really have dedicated people, right, in each of that's just doing full arch. I mean, that would also be crazy days on the P&L. It would kill you. You'd kill your business, right? But you have that micro team that's focused on it, that's responsible for it, that also has other responsibilities in the practice. So as it grows and flexes and adjusts, right, it would necessarily take away from some of their duties in the general dentistry side of the practice. So everybody has to be like participants and involved, and we work on that relationship too. It's a whole team game, right? It's an everybody game. And so the whole team also gets to celebrate in it again as a percentage of how they contribute to that portion of the business, as you would, potentially in clear aligners, any auxiliary that you do in your practice, sleep dentistry, any of them, right? It's just that full arch is just such a big, I mean, it's like the grand slam or the strikeout, right? It's all in, right? It's the last 30 seconds of the game, and you either make the free throw or you don't, right? Mm-hmm. That's the critical piece. But it's having everybody participating, because it should be an all play, right? Going back to Pictionary. Now you're just like pulling all these old references out of me. People are going to know my age by all the old references that I'm pulling out. But that's the critical piece, is everybody's rowing in the same direction. Everybody's celebrating the wins. It's not, oh, look, they're making that big old bonus, right? People standing on the sidelines. You would hope that that's not the culture. But why not preempt it and make sure everybody's on the same page? And that's something that we really care a lot about and have conversations about even before we start working with a practice or a small group, or even the DSO that we're working with that, we just onboarded 33 locations, that everybody has to be aware of at different levels, but certainly be aware of what is the goal, right? And that's true for any team sport. Doesn't matter the size, right? We're not playing an individual sport, right? This isn't a golf tournament. We're not talking the Ryder Cup either, right? I'm going to throw out every sports reference I can possibly find to try to talk to every single person on the podcast, right? We're going to go to rugby 7 soon, and we're going to hit on them all. But it's just so critically important that everybody is involved, right? That everybody's aware of and involved, so that as it does build and grow, it's not are we going to turn into a full arch clinic and, we're not going to have hygiene anymore, or we're not going to do drill and fill dentistry, or we're not going to service the rest of our patient population? That's just not the case, right? What it does is it provides a bigger pool of opportunity for everybody, not just that micro team, not just because it will put stressors too. Let me just be honest, Glenn, right? If you have a month when you're used to doing 2, 3, 4, 5 arches, and suddenly you do 12 in a month, it's going to put stress on the rest of the machine, because you don't have the support structure when it spikes like that. And we've seen that with clients too that we work with. That's why it's not just the teach, coach, and train side, but you've got to have the operational support side. And that's a big piece of GnA Consult that I brought in about a year ago, recognizing that there was some violent fluctuations up and down with clients that we worked with before then. And it was, wait a second, what don't we have here? What are we missing here? And so that's really an advantage of not playing the whack-a-mole that you talked about, right? That has like a singular focus. It's really that 360 view. And that's really what full arch is all about, being able to adapt and adjust, having the outside set of eyes from multiple different departments and saying, yes, you can do this. Absolutely. And we've seen other clients do this. Have you considered how it's going to impact these 3 other areas and what that pulling that lever is going to do?
Well, and I think that if you really think about it, for the doctors who are watching, if you want to do more full arch cases, more specialized cases, right? Mm-hmm. Cases that require a different skill set, right? On the clinical side, you have to imagine that in order to close these cases, you'll need a different set of skills as well. And that's why I love the fact that you are offering what you're offering, because a lot of times doctors, we're just so focused on, okay, I need it. Forget this marketing company. We're going to get this other marketing company. And we think that we can solve things by just like getting different marketing companies. But really, that's just like it is an important component, but it's a small component. There's the systems that need to go in. That's where you come in. And then, of course, there's the doctor actually doing the clinical procedures. So I was so excited to have you on, because I think a lot of doctors, or I know a lot of doctors, are missing this. So for those who are listening, they are intrigued and they're like, okay, you know what? What the heck? Let me see what Greg and his team can do. Walk me through the normal process when you work with a new client. I mean, they may be walking in saying, okay, I'm going to talk to Greg and I'm going to do a couple of Zoom calls and abracadabra, I'm kicking some butt again. Okay. I'm sure that's not the case. Maybe not for everybody. Maybe for a few cases where abracadabra, bam, right? Like they're right place, right time. But walk me through the normal process so that the doctors can kind of properly set their expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So they want to be able to see it and understand it before they jump in with both feet, for sure. And it's really an opportunity in the beginning to get to know us first and understand where are you at? What are your goals? Are your goals even realistic? And then who do you have in place? Right. To know what's the uplift and what are we really going to need to focus on first? Because there are all the different systems and processes to put into place. And then once we get going, it really is give us all the information that we need, all of the systems, all of the tech stack you're using, all the personnel that you're using. And that's where we get started because it's weekly trainings with every touch point of the patient journey, as we've alluded to some. And then it's weekly strategy sessions. And both of those happen online, recorded, and it's customized to their individual practice. And then we work immediately as well on their branding, right? Their differentiation, and work in conjunction with their existing marketing company that they have currently. If they want to upgrade or they want to have some conversation, that's great. 90% of the time, it's not a switch in their marketing company. It's really about their branding and having conversations with, because it's really the team that we need to work on first
Yeah.
and foremost, because it's the leads that aren't being manicured, manipulated, maneuvered, worked on, followed up, and it's the messaging that's most important first and foremost. So for the first 30 days, it's that. And then it's an on-site assessment with myself and we have one sales trainer that gets assigned to an account. And it's that first on-site within the first 30 days. So we can actually see, touch, feel, taste, see everything in the clinic, and know exactly where to then make adjustments to that first 90-day launch. We call it the first 90 because it's sketched out just like any football team has their first 15 offensive plays. But then again, if you throw a bomb and you get down to the 2 yard line, obviously
Yeah.
you modify that playbook to be able to see what it looks like. And that's really the teaching and coaching side and the strategy side. The operation side is to access the P&Ls and all of that to be able to peel apart their P&Ls for their full arch from their general dentistry. And most don't have that type of visibility. If they do, then we modify and adjust. But to get that visibility, what is your profitability per arch, 1 through 3, 3 through 5, 5 through 7, 7 through 9? What will it look like and the margins look like as you add more arches? What does your workflow look like digitally? What is a patient walkflow? What's their experience look like? And does it match what you say and what they see? Meaning when they go and try to find you somewhere, does it align? Are you saying the same words? Do you call it a complementary CT scan, or is it a CT, a CBCT, digital records, all along those touch points of the patient journey? So these are the things that immediately we start to align, which is critically important. Typically, we see an immediate uplift because it's hidden arches almost immediately in the first 30 days. By 60 days, there's a definite uplift we see with just about every single client. Unless they don't have team members in place, then we get to work on finding those team members and aligning those team members. And those are really in the first quick uplift, like you said, because there are no magic wands like pixie dust. It's certainly collaborative, but we take on the bulk of the work, and it's really implementing the strategy for the goals that they're trying to accomplish, any of our clients are trying to accomplish immediately. But we see that pretty quickly with most of our clients for sure.
Well, thank you for walking us through that abbreviated process. I can tell when you were explaining it,
Yeah,
there's so much
that's
more that
definitely the
goes
short
into it.
version.
That's the short version, but so much to go in there. But I wanted to demonstrate. I wanted you to say that because for our listeners, our viewers right now, if you were listening to what Greg was saying, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't do that, or I don't even know what that is, don't feel bad. All that is an opportunity. There's an opportunity. If you have a blind spot somewhere, if you're not doing something, I don't ever see those type of things, and you shouldn't either, as things that are lacking in your practice. It's an opportunity. It's actually an opportunity to get better. So I'm so excited to get you, Greg, in front of everybody here. We'll talk about later how to get a hold of him and what nifty deal I can wring out of him. We can talk about that later, but we're going to switch gears here. We're going to switch gears to something I can't bring a seasoned entrepreneur like yourself, Greg, onto this show without asking you the entrepreneur three. It's three questions I ask all my guests, entrepreneur questions. And the first one is share a productivity tip or tool that helps you stay efficient, that can help us all stay efficient as well.
Ooh.
Just
I can't
one,
take
Greg.
credit.
I know you have a ton, but just one.
I have one, and I can't take credit for this. It was a good friend of mine introduced me to this book, and it's a concept from a book, and it's called Eat That Frog. And what it is you take the most difficult thing you have on your day, and you do it first thing. First thing when you start your day, you take the most difficult thing and you do it. And then the rest of the day, all of your tasks are easier. Rather than letting that thing just consume you all day and I don't want to do that. I'll just go over here and do this easy little task. I'll send this easy little email. I'll book this flight over here, because that procrastination of the difficult task. And so I can't take credit for it, but I was introduced to it a long time ago by a good friend of mine. So Brian, thank you for introducing me to that, I think. But yeah, that's I put the most challenging thing right up front that is a task to accomplish, and I eat that frog every
Well, you know
morning. I
what?
try.
The benefit there is that if you get that out of the way, then you felt like you accomplished something, right? I
Yes.
mean, that makes you feel good, and then you can send those emails and do those other small
Or it
things.
crushes you, right? And you're defeated the rest of the day. No, I'm kidding.
I love it. I love it. Now, the second question is, I know you picked the concept out of a book. What is a book or a resource that you
Mm.
really like? You feel like it could help some of our listeners?
Yeah. So Glenn, I've been sober for 20 years, and this book was actually introduced to me before I got sober, and it's been foundational, and I read it frequently, at least 3, 4 times a year. And it's The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And the four agreements are pretty basic. It's be impeccable with your word. I do that okay. Don't make assumptions. And I'm skipping one intentionally, the second one. Last is always do your best, and I make a joke about that. Is some days you can walk on water. Other days it's you just don't run the old lady in the parking lot over with your shopping cart. That can be your best. Some days it happens. But the one that I struggle with, and I think most people do, is don't take things personally. And that one I need to be reminded of constantly, because if for some reason I'm just wired that, if something doesn't go my way, it's you're trying to hurt me. You're intentionally trying to hurt me or my career or my business or me personally. And so don't take things personally is the one of the four agreements. And so that book has been foundational. It's a very easy read. I know people talk about easy reads, but it's a very easy read. You just got to get past the first chapter. The first chapter is very philosophical, but beyond that, it's pretty easy. So that's been very foundational for me and still continues to be.
Well, I definitely need to look at that. I'm always, always have a list of books whenever I have guests on, so I'll definitely have that on my list. Now, the next question, I always leave this question last because it can be kind of hard, right? And when we go on social media and when we see people, social media is like a highlight reel for people, right? They're vacationing at this place, they accomplished something, they're doing these amazing things, but a lot of times we forget that all the success that many people have, it's set on a foundation of failures. So with that spirit, my next question is share a failure or a loss that you experience that you learned something significant from that other people can learn something from.
Mm.
One, if you're like
I
me,
like
Greg, you have
that.
a bunch of mistakes. You have a
I
bunch of
do,
mistakes. If you're like me.
I share my ugly. I do. I share my ugly. For those that actually know me on social media, I do share some of my ugly, and I'm okay with that. I don't call them mistakes. I call them learning opportunities, right? Mistakes are just the learning opportunities we haven't taken the lesson from yet. Um, Gosh, there are a number of them. I'd have to say one would be I actually launched GnA Consult the first time that my opportunity with Neodent ended in 2015, and just didn't have the right rudder in my business to make the right business decisions. And so when that opportunity, I needed to set that aside, my consulting business aside, and I rejoined the Neodent team and learned some more, which I'm super grateful for, and had some people in my corner that said yes when others were saying no, and learned a ton and really got my chops that really have helped me to be successful this time around. And so, yeah, it was, I put my trust in people who weren't necessarily having my best interest in mind. And so, as much as leaning on other people and believing people to be trustworthy, you have to go with yourself and trust your gut, no matter how much other people are saying it. And actually, I just heard that. I'm watching a podcast, listening to a podcast right now with Simon Sinek, and he talks about that actually, like the Simon Sinek. Like the Simon Sinek. If you don't know who he is, like he talks about that not only did he have somebody who was guiding him in an area that he isn't like an expert in, trusting him, wanted to let this person go, and he wasn't specific about who it was. His gut told him to do so. He tried to let him go, but got talked into keeping him. And it was a big mistake again that he made. And the way he talked about it, like he framed it in such a kind way. And I really related to it. And it threw me a little bit because it took me right back to 2015, 16. And it was a hard lesson to learn. And it's what kept me in fear about starting GnA Consult again 3.5 years ago. And, that self-worth piece, and which still will creep up at times. Like, do I really deserve this? And the imposter syndrome, which still comes up for me, even with my podcast and the success that I'm having, and, all the things, which it sounds silly, but it's going to the core people and knowing and then checking and then trusting yourself, trusting your gut. If something says this doesn't feel right, it probably isn't, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. Like, get in the game, play. Like, just get in the game and play. If it ends up not being the right path, you know what? There's another path out there. And it's not like, oh, that's your one opportunity. People say, oh, if God closes a door, he opens a window. You know what? Life is all windows. It's all windows. Some are a little dirty and need some Windex, but life is all windows. And it's what I'm learning. It's not what I have learned. I am learning that lesson. And it's beautiful when you get a chance to continue to learn that in your life. And people will be attracted to you if that is the mindset that you have. And I'm super grateful that people like yourself and others and I'm not just sucking up to the host. Honestly, it's just people like yourself that create a space. And I try to do that, right? I do. I try to do that on my podcast and with others that I bring around me, and trying to lift up other people's businesses. I try to create that space for others to flourish and have an opportunity and to have a voice. And I love that about what you do and about what others with a similar mindset do. And I aspire to continue to do that. So thank you for that opportunity, for that answer.
Well, couple of things, but I want to acknowledge you. One thing would be the right people will find you, right?
Mm.
The right people, if you keep being yourself and try to add value and stay true to yourself, the right people, not everybody, but the right people will find you. So I wanted to just to acknowledge and honor you there. Another thing too is something that my mom has told me in the past, and I remember as a kid, I'm like, whatever, right? But she's like, go against your gut at your own peril. She's like, if something doesn't feel right and you're like, you just do it anyways, you're taking a risk. Someone's watching out for you. Just like I always said, like your guardian angel's watching out for you. You're just blowing them off, and whatever happens, that's on you. And so there's something to be said about your gut feeling, right? And if you go against your gut, then you gotta deal with the consequences, like what Simon Sinek said. So such an amazing lesson there that you shared, Greg. Something that I think we all can relate to, and honestly, I think we're all working on it too. Greg, you were talking about how you're still working, figuring things out. I think we are too, especially that. So thank you so much for just and that's the one thing that I really respect about you as well, is that you don't hide things. You just share your experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I appreciate you for that. And I appreciate you being on this podcast because, again, I am so tired of just hearing doctors just saying like, hey, I'm so stressed out. I'm putting all this money in. I'm training. I'm doing everything I can. And I'm not seeing the benefits of practice ownership. And it breaks my heart because it's like being a dental practice owner. It is one of the hardest things you're going to do. right? I mean, people talk about how hard dental school is. Look, you just got to pass your classes. You pass your class, you get your diploma. With the practice, there's so much more than just passing your class. Passing your classes, you're just breaking even, you know? And so I was so excited to bring you on here, Greg. So with that being said, for those who are very interested, they want to get to know you. Obviously, you have a podcast. If guys, if you want to do some undercover work and research this guy, watch all his podcasts. You'll see that the way he talks on his podcast, and I know because I've met him in person. I'm actually going to be meeting you. I'm super stoked. We're going to be hanging out at a really cool retreat in a couple of weeks. But I'm telling everyone, the way he's talking here, that's how he is. There's no fake to it, right? So again, if you want to do some research, watch his podcast. But Greg, for those who want to see if there's a fit, they want to see if you can help them. Maybe they are trying everything they can and they don't know where else to turn. If you are one of those people, I'm going to say you haven't tried everything. You haven't talked to Greg. So Greg, how do they take the first steps?
Yeah, thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. The easiest way is shoot me a text. Let's have a conversation. My cell phone number, I'll give that to you. It's 602-743-5262. If you want to do a little bit of reconnaissance to see if I am exactly what Glenn says and it's legit, or if you want a ton of free resources, I mean, literally, head over to the website. There you can also request a strategy session. It's a complimentary strategy session where you can actually input a little bit more information about kind of where you're at in your practice, and it'll give a little bit more uplift and prep me rather than just blindly reaching out. But I don't mind if you blindly reach out to my cell phone number and text me. Happy to have that conversation too. And the website where all that information is housed is Dental Consult for the number 4 and the letter U.com. So dentalconsult4u.com.
Greg, I'm actually going to throw a bonus in. Generally, I would end the show right now, but I'm having such a good time, and I wanted you to get one more last word in, and that is the state of dentistry, or dentistry in general as an industry. Are you optimistic or are you pessimistic?
I am tremendously optimistic. I know some people are worried with, the consolidation and the M&A and all of this. This is opportunity. It's opportunity. It's what you make of it. Certainly, right? There are headwinds and there always will be. As much as there are headwinds, there's always opportunity, right? And it's a matter of getting with like-minded people, find out what others are doing. It's not competition, right? If you see others as competition, oh, please don't, right? Get with others who have like the abundance mindset and see it all as opportunity out there. There are more people out there that need treatment and that need our help in this industry in general. I mean, I can talk about general dentistry and I can talk about, only 55% of the people actually visit the dentist on a regular basis. I could talk about that. I could talk about the fact that 10,000 individuals in my lane, full arch, 10,000 individuals are retiring on average and will do so, right? Reach the age of 65 between now and 2030. I can talk about 36 million edentulous arches. There is a desperate need in the population for those that want to help them find a solution so that they can actually bite into an apple. They can eat raw vegetables. We know how important it is to eat raw vegetables and get your nutrition from Mother Nature, right? Yes, I mean, I even do the protein shake, so I do that as well as supplement, right? Not to, who wants to be eating like astronaut food, right? I mean, it's kind of cool, right? Don't get me wrong, we'll eventually be on Mars, but for while we're on Earth, there's nothing like the taste of good food and being able to eat it. So I am very optimistic for those that have the abundance mindset, and it really is set your mind to it and you can actually do it.
Well, there's a mic drop right there. Nothing else for me to say. Greg, thank you so much for jumping on. Guys, stay tuned for all the information with Greg. And Greg, thank you so much. And guys, we'll see you next time.